for himself helps him cope with the trauma of his false confession and wrongful incarceration. The theme of compassion can also be found in Sony and ABC's fictional drama series, For Life. Here is executive producer Hank Steinberg speaking about how it plays an important role in the series.
Aaron has to figure out how to keep his compassion and his humanity in prison, which is a dehumanizing system by its very structure. How can I have compassion for other inmates? And we see him struggle with that in the course of the show when he takes cases for other inmates where he needs to use their cases to help him. And what happens if what's best for his client is not what's best for him, or vice versa.
Be sure to watch Sony Pictures Television and ABC's drama series, For Life, Tuesdays at 10/9 Central on ABC. Now, back to Chris's story. Chris did not adjust well to prison life. An older prisoner took notice and offered some advice.
He was a lieutenant in a gang, and said, "You're an honest kid. You're not trying to be something you're not. Go to school, and because maybe someday you'll get out and you'll be ready." I had already had that in my mind, but him encouraging me to go to school, right? And then he said, "The one thing you gotta do is you mind your own business. You see something, they ask you, you see nothing. You saw it, but you didn't see it."
Chris took the man's words to heart and began using the prison's educational resources. But his studies could not numb his emotional pain. Chris's family also suffered.
It destroys family. It destroyed my family. My mom, she was always stressed about me in prison. I had a cousin that was really close to her. She was like a year younger than me. I would write her once in a while from prison, and she would never write me back. My uncle, her dad, passed away, and I sent her a condolence card, and she didn't write me back. What I found out years later, she was scared of me. My family would go visit me. They would try to go once a year, if they could, or maybe twice. But my family lived in El Paso, Texas. I was in a prison on the East Texas border, so it was pretty far. But I would look forward to their visits because I got to see my grandpa, my grandma, my dad, my mom. One thing that was always my constant was my Uncle Ron.
I'm Ron Navejas, Chris's uncle. My first impression when I saw him through that glass, I saw this lost kid, boy. I saw it in his eyes. He looked lost. Every time I would visit Chris, I told myself I would not break down. I would be strong for him. We thought we were in a nightmare. I said, this can't be happening. It's not Chris. That's not Chris. Chris wouldn't hurt a fly. I know that's an old cliche, but it's the truth. He wouldn't. There's no way. This is not him. My parents, his grandparents were very devastated. It was very devastating for all of us.
Chris's family visits, as infrequent as they were, helped ease the loneliness of his incarceration. But around the time Chris turned 30, he hit his lowest point. As he faced yet another holiday season away from home, the reality of what his life had become was too much to bear. His Uncle Ron remembers that painful time.
The hardest moment of Chris's incarceration was one Christmas. It was the Christmas, I believe, about 2 years before he got released. He wrote me a letter, and he was giving up.
I didn't have what my friends had. I wasn't married. I didn't have a beautiful wife. I didn't have kids. I didn't have a car. The American dream was gone. For me, I thought. My family went on with their lives as they should have. I felt that nobody in the world loved me anymore. I felt that. I just told my buddy, I said, look, I don't know if I'm going to get a Christmas card. And he looked at me and said, you'll get one. Just wait. And it was the 24th of December. I didn't get a Christmas card from anybody. And I went back to my cell. And I was just crying. And I was feeling this pain. I didn't want to feel it anymore. So I took a razor blade and I broke it open. And I put it on my arm, and I was going to run it up the vein, not across. Because I knew across is just a cry for help. And if I run it up, they won't get to me on time. I had the razor blade to my skin. I was raised Catholic, and I remember the nuns. They had told us that we didn't have the right to take anybody's life, not even our own, because God gave us our life. So when I remembered those words, I took the blade and I flushed it down the toilet, and somehow I got through Christmas Eve, and I made it.
He wrote me a letter that he hadn't received any Christmas cards that year, and he was giving up. He wrote to me and told me, I'm going to take my life. Sorry. I was, my hands were tied. I didn't know how to reach out to him. I couldn't call him, so I just wrote him another letter and pleaded to him not to take his life. That we're still here for him, and all those letters and all those Christmas cards that he was expecting that he did not get, he got them like 2 weeks later. They were held up in the mail somewhere, but he did get them.
When you're in prison, you crave any connection to the outside world. Holidays and other milestones are particularly hard. Those cards and letters, those signs of compassion from your loved ones, they really do help you get through it. Fortunately, Chris did eventually receive those Christmas cards and letters from his family. Those correspondences, along with his new focus on his education, helped shift Chris's outlook.
After that, I just somehow found strength. And I said, this is my life. I'm going to die in here. So I might as well make the best of it.
Chris did just that. While in prison, he earned 2 associate's degrees. Then, in early 1998, there was a break in Chris's case. In another Texas prison, convicted felon Akeem Joseph Marino underwent a religious conversion, which compelled him to write letters to authorities confessing that he alone raped and murdered the female victim in Chris and Richard's case. Detectives launched a reinvestigation and went to speak with Chris in prison. Their questions made him suspicious. He worried they may have had an ulterior motive. Chris ended the jailhouse meeting by reconfirming his guilt.
Cops don't come see you for the same crime. They come see you for others, right? And in my mind, I said, these guys are hiding something. But they started playing a good cop, bad cop routine. They showed me a lineup, and I just ended the interview. I wanted to throw them off. But as soon as I ended the interview, it was a buddy of mine that was going home on parole. He got released, and he got in call the New York Innocence Project. And he told them my story. They didn't take my case, but they sent my buddy a list of innocence projects. And I circled the Wisconsin Innocence Project. Don't know why, just circled it. I wrote them an 9-page letter. They called me, and they started investigating the case. And then they found all that evidence that pointed away from me. My attorney said, look, this could always go south. Because you're clearly innocent, but there's cases where it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So they kept me grounded, one day at a time. There's new testing mechanisms. There's more advanced DNA. They ran the DNA test. They cleared me, cleared Danziger.
About a year and a half after Chris reached out to the Wisconsin Innocence Project, he was released. he had spent just over 12 years behind bars. Richard Danziger was not as fortunate. He was violently attacked by another inmate and suffered permanent brain damage. Although upset by what happened to Richard, Chris blames the broken system that put 2 innocent men in prison.
I was the victim. Just like Danziger, we were victims of the police department. When my Innocence Project lawyer told me I was going to be released, it's hard to describe what I felt, but I know it felt like bricks coming off my shoulders. Is this actually happening? But it was actually happening. I was really happy. It was on a Monday morning. They didn't have bananas in prison, so that was a treat for me to eat a banana that morning. As they walked me to the courtroom, I remember they sit down with my attorney, and he notices I don't have a belt. He took the belt he was wearing with his suit. I still have the belt. Burgundy. It was a loop, like a braided belt. And he put it on. He said, put it on so you can look presentable. And then they walked me to the courtroom. I was still in shackles up until I walked in the courtroom, and they took off everything. The initial prosecutor that actually put me in prison was sitting in the jury box. She just gave me a really dirty look. And it just gave me the chills. Just same look I had from the detectives when this whole thing started for me. The DAs present the evidence, and my attorneys present the evidence, and the judge, I do remember clearly when he looked at me and he said, Mr. Ochoa, on behalf of the state of Texas, I want to apologize to you. What happened to you was a tragedy. It was a miscarriage of justice. I went up and shook the judge's hand, and I told him thank you, because that was the judge that sentenced me in the first place. And I don't know how that worked out, but it was great. My mom was there. My uncle was there. The victim's mother was there, because I became really good friends with her. When she found out I was innocent, she felt horrible. But we started writing each other. Me and her formed a bond. When I was free to leave, I froze. The bailiff had to come tell me, you don't have to ask permission, you can leave. And I walked out with my mom. She was holding my hand. She didn't want, she just got her son back.
I felt very happy and joyful that he was released, and that all the people that blame him, especially the mother of the girl, she was crying with me, and she was very nice, that lady, to me. And she went and talked to me, I'm sorry you went through this, and I'm sorry.
Chris celebrated his first night of freedom at a steakhouse in Austin, but his mind was not at peace.
I wanted to go home immediately the next day, but I had told my attorneys I don't want to be in that airplane by myself. I'm scared that these cops are going to do something, they're going to plant something again, just because they're angry at me, because I made them look bad. I had my own hotel room. I thought they left me alone, and these cops were going to come railroad me again. That's all I could think about. But I got through the night, and when I woke up in the morning, the law students from the Innocence Project, they also worked on the case. They came to my room, and I was making my bed. And they said, what are you doing? I said, I'm making my bed. I got to make my bed. No, you're not in prison anymore. So that was the first instance of freedom that started.
From the time of his arrest right through to his release, Chris's Uncle Ron was a constant source of support. After prison, Chris moved into Ron's spare bedroom.
The first day that he came to my home, we were in the kitchen. I remember vividly asking him, what do you want? What do you want to eat? Do you want to go out to eat? He would not look at me. He says, Ron, in prison, if we look at the guards or the warden, we get punished. So it's going to take me a while to break this. habit. And that